Alright, so let's get started on video number 1 for my newest pattern. That's sort of a fold over clutch. It currently does not have a name. So I'm thinking after I film the videos and then I'll post the completed one in our Facebook group and let people vote on the name and see if anybody has good ideas. Sometimes I just can't come up with anything good. So to get started, first pages 11 through 20 of the pattern, we'll print the pattern pieces only. The pattern comes with a size small and a size large. The small is more of a clutch size, and the large is going to be a little bit bigger, like a crossbody size. The cover of the pattern will have the finished measurements listed. So for the small, when you print your pattern pieces, make sure that you have downloaded them to your computer and that you print them from the Adobe Reader app. You want them to be printed at full size or 100%. I usually check the auto landscape / portrait option. You want to take a ruler and make sure that each one of the squares on each page measures 1 inch. And that just makes sure that every page printed correctly. And then I'll point out also, I don't have it on this yet, but I will be including an additional cut list. So there's some pieces have pattern pieces and then different rectangle pieces like the zipper tabs and the connector and the different strap options. They'll just have measurements. So they'll be listed on a piece like this on one of the pattern pieces. And I'll have that listed on both the large and the small. So when you print these, you will want to cut out right along the black solid lines all the way around your pattern pieces. You can cut those out with scissors. You can cut it out with a rotary cutter if you choose. I like to print my patterns if I'm going to be making it a lot and I have it on hand. I like to print them on cardstock because then it's easier for me. Well, for one, they're more durable, and for two, I can just use that to trace around with my rotary cutter to cut them out easier. I really like cardstock, and I just haven't bought any in a while, so. So right now, if you see these pieces say something fold over clutch, because I really have no idea what to name it. I've had a couple of my testers suggest to name it pivot, which I definitely want to do a pivot, but this was not, I have an idea in mind already for pivot, so if I ever do that. I don't know if it's necessary to watch me cut all of the pieces. So I might see if I can speed up this section. For the video, I'm going to make the small size bag, and also the small size bag is what is the main bag, I guess, for the directions. So all of the illustrations show the small size bag, and then the different measurements needed for the large bag are listed in parentheses throughout the pattern. So it would be page, let's see, 11 through 14 for the small, and 15 through 20 for the large. So I will be making a large bag after this also. And then I'll probably make the crossbody strap for the large bag. So I'll film that strap also, because I'm going to make a wristlet strap for this the small size clutch. Fold over. Maybe it should be called something like about pizza. Maybe I need to watch the one where they order pizza. See if I get any names from that. Okay, so these are the pieces for the small. If you notice, the way that I have the writing is the correct orientation for the pattern pieces. So when you cut them out and you want your fabric to be right side up, if it's directional, you will want your writing to be face up. All right, and then I did also print out the large, which I will not film cutting out. But when you cut these out, you'll cut directly along this line, and then you'll butt these two lines together and tape at the matching letters. So the front flap, or the flap front and the flap back, will both have to be matched up and taped together. And then the large body pieces are cut on the fold, and the small is cut on the fold as well. Okay, so let me set those aside. All right, so when we cut out our fabric, I'm going to make the small from this, which is Anna Maria Horner Fibs and Fables, something I've just had for quite a while. I just noticed as I'm pulling fabric for this, like, I haven't bought like quilting cotton. I used to buy some of the newest stuff right when it would come out, Tula Pink and everything, and I haven't done that in a long time. Made me think I need new fabric though. All right, so that's upside down. So if you have, if you want to fussy cut your fabric, you'll want more than the fabric requirements that are listed on the pattern. So this is what's going to be on the flap of my bag. And I really love the colors and the clouds. Let's see. I will use this down near the edge. Sometimes it kills me to fussy cut. That's really pretty though, that portion. It probably would have been a better idea if I ironed my fabric first. Who wants to iron, right? Alright, so this is how I cut my pattern pieces out. I just lay the pattern on the fabric and cut around with the rotary cutter. Obviously be careful not to like cut a finger off or anything. I do want to point out, when I'm cutting out my exterior, I want the pattern piece to be right side up. So I want the writing facing me. And then, since this is angled, when you cut it out on the lining, you want your pattern piece to face this way. And then with the inner facing will be the same. You'll cut one face up, one face down. So I just want to point that out. Let's see what portion. This little lake area is really pretty. So I'm going to put that on the main body. So I want that to be on the front, so that this lake will show just below those clouds. So and I'll actually just fold it so that tree is centered. So then when you lift up the flap, you should be able to see the tree. All right, and this part here will be actually folded under the bag. So if I want that lake to show, I'll place it up a little higher than that. Sometimes it can be fun to fussy cut and choose which portion of the fabric that you want to show on your bag. So here I'm going to cut out the top, sides, and bottom on the fold. And then I'm going to slide that away, and I'm going to go back in with a pair of scissors, which these are paper scissors, and just cut out that square Okay. So now when it's together, you should be able to see something like that right on the front of the bag. That should look pretty. All right, so now my other flap. I just love those clouds. So I think I'll put the clouds actually on the bottom flap too. The back flap. Flap back. That's what we're calling it. Okay. So this part right here at the very tip is actually folded over onto the front of the clutch. If you look at the picture on the front of the pattern, you can see how that looks. So just keep in mind that whatever is on that portion will show on the front of the bag. It's not going to fit right there. Here, I'll go to this section here. Maybe. Yeah, go ahead. What? I can cut this part out.
You're saying these are the good ones?
I know. Did you forget I was doing this?
Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm sorry this is taking me too long. I'm just thinking of what will show when you lift the flap up. You know what? I'm just going to go with this. It's not that big of a deal, right? All right, and then one more piece, which is the flap, or the back main body piece. Maybe I'll do this section here with the flowers. I don't have that anywhere else. Okay. So for the main body front and back, it doesn't matter if your pattern piece is right side up or down when you cut those, since they're mirror pieces. Okay. Trim that little corner off. Alright, and then you'll cut out the pieces that are listed as measurements. And I cut these out of the exterior fabric as well. If you wanted to, you could use a contrast fabric for that, which would look nice if you want like a little leather handle or something. That would be nice. So I'm going to use a wristlet strap on this one. So I want 13 by 2. And I just use my quilting ruler. And I don't want the selvage in there, so I'll cut off a little more than 13 by 2. About right there should be good, and then I can trim that portion off. By 2. If you don't have a ruler like this, they're available, I think at any probably sewing store. I know Joann Fabric sells them. I'm in the US. Walmart has them. It was probably one of my first purchases, and I mean, I think they're marketed as quilting supplies, but for bag making, especially when patterns list out rectangles, Very, very, very useful. What else do we need to cut? Our strap, our connector. So for the small bag, it's 9.75 by 1 inch. I'll just cut that. Let's see, that's gonna run across the bag this way and be sewn on the bottom flap. I'm just going to cut it from the bottom portion so that if you can make out any of the picture on it, that it's going the right direction. Let's see, I'll just cut something a little bit bigger and then trim it down. I want this end. 1 inch by 9.7 inches, so. I probably didn't do this the smartest way, but it's okay. 9 3/4 by 1. Alright, so then that will be my connector piece. And then the last thing we have to cut is 4 zipper tabs out of the exterior fabric. So I have this other smaller ruler, which I like to use when I'm cutting out small things. Each zipper tab is 2.5 inches by 1 1/4 inches. And the width is 2.5. So if your fabric is directional, you will want to cut it this way, 2.5 by 1 1/4. I'm just going to cut a long strip that's 1 1/4 wide. And then I can go ahead and cut 2.5 inch lengths off of that. Okay, so I think we covered everything that needs cut out of the exterior fabric, and you'll see I have notes on this of things I want to change before this is finalized, but I list out, so on page 2 of the pattern, there's a list of what you need to cut out of the exterior fabric, lining fabric, fusible, so you can go ahead and print this out and check them off as you go, and that can be helpful to make sure that you don't miss any pieces. So that's everything from our exterior fabric. I'm not going to film all of this. So this is what I'll be using for my lining fabric. Just make sure that when you cut out the flat pieces from this, that you place the pattern piece down, face down, on the right side of the fabric. And then for a fusible woven interfacing, again, you will cut one with the flat piece down and one with the flat piece up for each of the flaps. And then we will also have, let me cut out the fusible fleece pieces. Alright, so when you cut the fleece out, I'm going to, let's see, I'm just going to kind of rough cut a piece out of this so I can get the whole roll off my table. Just so that I can show how this is going to be done. Oh, so I just ordered this fleece and it's actually really thick. heavyweight fusible. I usually get thermal lamb. So hopefully this isn't too thick for the small bag, but I don't think it will be. All right, so you'll want to cut this on the fold the same way that you did with the pattern piece, or with the fabric piece, I'm sorry. Okay, and then the only thing that you'll want to do differently is we are going to trim the seam allowances off of the fleece. If you have like a heavy duty sewing machine and you think it would be fine to sew through the layers, it would probably be okay to leave them on. I think because it's such a small pattern that it would be nicer to cut them off. So 1/2 inch on the bottom and each side. And then 3/8 of an inch along the top. And this will be for both the front and back fleece pieces. All right, and then it would be 1/2 inch for that square. So I'm going to take my ruler and just line it up so it's at the 1/2 inch mark. And I'll go ahead and trim that. And then on your fabric pieces, when you fuse this, it will be centered. So you'll fuse the woven interfacing first. And then after that's fused, let's see. This is not the right piece. All right, here's my back. So fuse the woven interfacing first, and then you will place this over the top. Make sure that it's 1/2 inch from the sides and bottom and the corners, and 2 or 3/8 of an inch from the top. And then you'll fuse that into place as well. All right, so I'm going to finish cutting everything out, and then I'll be back when we fuse everything. All right, to iron the interfacing to the pieces, here are my lining front and back main body pieces, and those will both get a piece of fusible woven interfacing. I use Pellon Shape Flex SF101. There are other brands. Make sure that you have the corresponding front or back piece and that they fit correctly. I always spray with a spray bottle. So I believe on the Pellon brand anyway, if you read it, it does say to pre-shrink. So I always spray it with a little bit of water and let it sit for a second, and it kind of shrinks up, and then I fuse it. I don't use steam on my iron just because it leaks. And why haven't I bought a new iron yet? I don't know. But if you have a heat press or a steam press, you can use that to fuse your interfacing, and that would speed the process up. I do have one, but I don't use it when I make my videos. So I just flip them over and give another quick press from the right side to make sure that everything's nice and fused. Okay, and then the exterior main body pieces. Let's see if I can find those. Oh. So we'll have the front, back. I'm going to give that a quick press first. I obviously did not pre-iron my fabric. Just make sure you get the piece that fits each one properly. Give them a quick spray. All right, and then each of these exterior pieces will get a piece of fleece fused to them as well. So you'll want to make sure that from the wrong side, it will be 1/2 inch away from each side and the bottom, and 3/8 of an inch away from the top. And then fuse that from the right side. Again, I spritz it with water. And then it seems to take a little bit longer for the fleece to fuse, so I just hold the iron in place for a few seconds. You can also fuse it with a pressing cloth on this side of the fleece if you don't want to do it from the right side of your fabric. I think that's what the directions maybe say, is to use a damp pressing cloth. I don't remember. So make sure you check the directions on your specific fleece. And then just make sure that it's fused really well all the way around the edges. And go back in to make sure you get all edges. And the steam helps, I think, because it gets hotter. It makes it hotter to melt that glue on the fleece. All right, see how that didn't fuse that well, so just go back in there and make sure you get it. All right, so what other pieces do we have? You'll have a lining flap back, a lining flap front, let's see, and then an exterior flap front and back as well. So I'll give all of these pieces a quick press. And again, these are mirrored images so that they will sew together the right way. So then you should also have a mirrored image of each front and back piece that will go on each of these. So fusible side down to the wrong side of the fabric. Spritz these all with water. There, and do you see how much the woven interfacing shrunk from spraying it? So if you don't pre-shrink it, then your finished bag, if it gets wet, and that interfacing might shrink, and it will cause it to wrinkle up. And that actually happened to me once. at the rest of the pieces. We have one wrist strap, one connector, and we have 8 total zipper tab pieces. Which I am missing an exterior one. Alright, so I'll have to find that. Or I'll recut it. Maybe I'll recut it because I don't see it anywhere. And then you'll just fuse a piece of the woven interfacing to each of these. This is where it's nice to use a steam press because you can just lay all of this out in there, spray it with water, close it, fuse everything at one time. Big time saver. Okay, so I'll go ahead and fuse the rest of these and then we'll be back for video number 2, which will be the first sewing video.